Our first order of business is the application for special permit on behalf of LH Taylor LLC.
Application for special permit on behalf of LH Taylor Properties LLC, owner applicant and Associates PC. Application is for a special permit for construction of a new dental office facility with all the associated site amenities located at 306 Highland Avenue, 57/260, Assessors Map 57, Lot 260, in an R20A zone.
Name and address for the record.
Francis, Arthur H. Holland Associates, for the record.
Just go right to the podium, sir.
You folks, do you have all copies of the plan?
I believe so.
And I can put them, you guys aren't going to see much from the easel anyway, or,
If you want to set the easel up so the public could see it, please.
right.
Thank you.
Yes, folks, tonight we're here for LH Holdings, LH Taylor Holdings, 306 Highland Avenue. The property currently exists as a nail salon, and our proposal is to reconstruct or rebuild the property as an office medical facility.
Well, I have
Associated parking. We're going to maintain the typical driveway through the site as it exists today with the 2 access points and the associated parking required. The drainage was handled. The site currently exists with a ridge line, north-south running. Pretty much, it kind of splits the site into a 1/4 to 3/4, 1/4 running west, the 3/4 running east. Our proposed development is going to reduce the amount of flow to the west, both from an overall area standpoint and impervious coverage, and drive most of the water east into our retention basins that's shown there. And we've run drainage calculations for this and reduced for all the storms, 5, 10, 25, 50, and 100 years. I was told to keep this short and sweet, so
Yeah, no, you're doing good.
if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer anything.
Looking at the map, I mean, it seems that the parking lot's going to be much more larger.
Than existing.
Yeah, than existing. And how many spots is it?
We have 30.
Yep.
We're showing 30. 29 is required.
Okay. And what is it now?
Well, it's tough to say now because it's not
10?
really striped. It's, 10, 12.
That was in the back.
Yeah,
Correct.
It's off to the side. Now, the auxiliary driveway that goes off on the side, is that to come out to the light? On the right side of the building?
Yeah, that's going to remain as it currently is. It's like a driveway. There's an easement there through the adjoining property. We're not doing any work beyond the property line.
And that's an out only?
Correct.
Okay. Any commission members have any questions?
No, I like that they're keeping that, I like they're keeping that separate driveway though, because it's going to be easier for people to make a left-hand turn out of there.
Anyone else? Yeah, any question? No? What's the increase in size of the building?
I don't have that readily available. What's that?
5,500 plus or minus. 5,500 plus or minus.
Increase from what it was.
Well, that building there is
Well,
probably 2,500.
Could you go to the podium just please? Thank you.
Sorry.
Just name and address for the record, please. Thank you.
Joe Testa, 23 Ellison Court, Prospect, Connecticut. I'm the general contractor
Yep.
for,
So the existing building's like 3,000 square feet?
the existing building is about 2,500 square feet. The existing building will come down.
Yep.
And the new building's going to be approximately 5,500 plus or minus.
Okay. It's still single story, right?
We're gonna, upstairs, we'll have I believe an office is gonna be up there. I think one
I
bathroom.
don't think we have a side view of the building, do we? Do we have the picture of the, do you have a picture of the building, what's gonna look like? Oh, I'm sorry, the new one. I missed it. I got it. Okay. Yeah, it looks good. I like the gate, all right. I missed that. So, any other questions, commission members? Any? You like the look of it? Okay. Everybody likes the look of it. Good job. Is there anyone in the public wishing to ask any application? Any questions about this application? No? Anything from staff?
No, the applicant has addressed all of staff's comments and has demonstrated compliance to the regulations.
Okay. And what's the turnaround for the project as far as when we start, when you finish?
Leave that to Mr. Testa.
We'll start as soon as I can acquire a building permit, and I would have to have it completed by August or July of next year. Has to be completed.
Okay, so be here. Thank you.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Anyone else? No? Okay, I'm going to close this public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to the regular zoning meeting. We're going to recess the public hearing for 2, 3, and 4 for right now and go into our public hearing into our planning zoning commission meeting. So can I get a vote on the recessing the public hearing?
Second.
Okay, motion by Mr. Dawson, second by Mr. Natale. All those in favor of recess of the meeting? Aye. Okay, thank you. All right, moving forward, we're going to go to call the order for the Planning and Zoning Commission regular meeting. We got a roll, we have a quorum, and we're going to do a public hearing, accepting minutes.
Motion to approve both sets of minutes for the public hearing and the regular meeting from 6:27.
Second by Mr. Mercado. Mr. Talley. All those in favor of the minutes as they were, signify by saying aye. Abstaining. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4. 702. Two. Yep. Yeah, so it'd be 602. Okay, communications requests of Johnny Carrier for a release of erosion and sediment control bond for Carrier Woods Development.
Mr. Chairman, we went out and looked at the site with myself and the town engineer. We felt that the erosion issues have been addressed out there, that we can release the bond. So I have actually a motion for the commission for the release of the bond.
Please read it.
Motion to approve release of the erosion sediment control bond in the amount of $31,800 submitted on October 27, 2015. The funds would come to the Carrier Group. The bond is for the Castle Heights community, formerly known as River Cove Estates.
Move to accept. Okay, Mr. Mercado, and second by Mr. Bowman. Discussion? No? Okay, all those in favor of the motion as it is, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. That's going to be 8-0. Request of Paul Bowman.
Mr. Chairman,
I
I'll
would
be
assume-
recusing
I would
myself
assume
for
so.
this.
Okay, so. Go ahead.
This is for the naming of the road of Stonebridge Crossing Development, 7-lot re-subdivision, north end of Route 10 in Cheshire. The applicant or the developer asked request for Stonebridge to be the name of the road, which was reviewed by fire, police, determined it did not have any emergency management issues by the group. It comes to 12 letters, it doesn't exceed 13. So it's okay to approve this. I have a motion to accept the name as submitted.
It's not a bar in Milford.
No, it's not a bar in Milford. This will be a development.
Okay.
So,
Who's moved by Mr. Picado? Second by?
look, can I
Yeah,
read it?
I'm read it. Okay, go ahead.
It's just a motion to approve the name Stonebridge Court for the public road that serves the 7-lot subdivision known as Stonebridge Crossing.
Thank you. Okay, moved by Mr. Cotto, second by Mr. Dawson. All those in favor of Stonebridge Crossing, right? Stonebridge Court.
Stonebridge Crossing.
Stonebridge Court. Okay, Stonebridge Court. See anybody saying aye?
The Stonebridge Court.
Aye. Okay. Unanimous. Thank you. Okay, there's nothing new. Application of JAD Partners LLC owners. No, we're just gonna bring it in and set a date for that.
So actually, they have applied. It's a special permit for the development of the other. There's 2 properties that were supposed to be developed that are on, one houses Feldman orthodontist. They're going to develop that vacant parcel to the south of
Yes.
of the
Yep.
facility, and it's a daycare that's coming in. And daycare will occupy the entire structure.
Now, is that July 25th is us?
That'll be
being-
our next meeting. It'll be for a public hearing. They're on a tight time schedule for
Yeah, I was gonna say,
construction
what
purpose.
about with August? Is that gonna be a problem?
We've actually reviewed this application in-house at this point. There are no issues with staff, but
Okay,
they can discuss this with the commission at the next meeting.
Sean, I believe we've reviewed this before when the initial building came in. So we always knew
They
there
were
was
gonna
going to
put
be
the
a
second
second
building
building
up,
there. So
yeah.
this is really,
okay. All right, so that's gonna be, okay. As long as we have that, then we could go. Oh, yeah, we have to vote on 4. I'm sorry. Voting on number 4, application for a special permit on behalf of LH Taylor Properties LLC. Go ahead. Motion.
Mr. Chair, I have the following motion in the affirmative. Motion to approve application for a special permit on behalf of LH Taylor Properties LLC owner, applicant Arthur H. Holland Associates PC, application for special permit for the construction of a new dental office facility with the associated site and entities located at 306 Highland Avenue, 5720, Assessor's Map 57, Lot 260, Zone R20A. Approval per plans titled Site Development Plans for Proposed Medical Facility prepared by Arthur H. Holland Associates PC. Revision date July 8th, 2022. And further, the Cheshire Planning and Zoning Commission find that the applicant has demonstrated compliance with the standards set forth in the Cheshire zoning regulations. The special permit is subject to the following condition. 1, fire department approved emergency key box will be installed and/or maintained at a location approved by the fire chief or his designee.
Second.
Second by Mr. Kaderis. Discussion? It's just a pretty straightforward application and a very nice building. Nice change of use up there also.
all those
I
in favor?
do like the look of the building and the
Yeah.
constructions. Fits
Yeah,
right
I
in.
mean-
Thank you.
All those in favor of the motion as it is, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. 8 all.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
8 all.
Enjoy your rest of your evening.
Motion to recess.
No, motion to, we're going to end this meeting. We're ending it. And we're going to, oh, 1, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3 are remaining open. And they'll be continued to the next.
Are we going to
7:25.
Under new business, are we going to accept the application? On number 8? We don't have to accept it?
No,
No.
no, it's
Okay.
accepted by statute and it's been advertised, so you'll hear it at your next meeting. It's all
So
set.
1, 2, and 3 are still going to be on for next week also. Okay. So motion to
Adjourn.
adjourn by
Motion
Mr.
to
Bowman,
adjourn.
second by Mr. Canaris. I think he beat you to the punch. Okay, now we're moving on to the public hearing.
Before we start, just for clarification, on the agenda, it says that the public hearing must close by 8:15. I thought we had 65 days.
You have 65 days to open the hearing, then you have 35 days after the date that the public hearing opens to close it, which can be extended by up to 65 days by the applicant.
Okay, so put that by year.
Yeah, and then you have, once the close of the public hearing, you have 65 days after you close it to act. So it's 65, 35, 65.
Okay, opening the public hearing again. We have 2, 3, and 4. Rita? Yeah, read them all.
Application for a cluster subdivision on behalf of Lovely Development, applicant Lauren and Earl Kurtz, owner. Application is for a 20-lot cluster subdivision at the property located at 648 Wallingford Road and 64/14 Talmadge Road. Assessor map 66, lots 13 and 14, R40 zone. Applicant is requesting a waiver pursuant to section 6.10.01 of the subdivision regulations with respect to sidewalks on the eastern side of the property. Of the proposed cul-de-sac street. Number 3, application for special permit pursuant to section 42 of the zoning regulations on behalf of Lovely Development, Inc., applicant Lauren and Earl Kurtz, owners. Application is for a special permit for a 20-lot cluster subdivision at the properties located at 648 Wallingford Road and 66/14 Talmadge Road. Assessor map 66, lots 13 and 14 in R40 zone. And number 4, the application for a special permit for earth removal, filling, or regrading on behalf of Lovely Development, Inc., applicant Lauren and Earl Kurtz, owners. Applicant is requesting a special permit for earth removal, filling, and regrading associated with 20-lot cluster subdivision for the properties located at 648 Wallingford Road and 66/14 Talmadge Road. Assessor map 66, lot 13 and 14, zone R40. Applicant is requesting waiver pursuant to section 25.3.2, subsection 3 and 9 of the zoning regulations associated with the special permit.
Okay, name and address for the record.
For the record, my name is Anthony Fazzone. I'm an attorney here in Cheshire with a law firm of Fazzone, Ryan, and Ricciuti, representing the applicant and the owner. As the call of the meeting said, this is an application for a cluster subdivision under section 42 of the zoning regulations. That section classifies the application as a special permit, requiring compliance with section. And there are a couple of items with respect to special permit or site plan approvals under section 25, the earth removal, earth regrading provision. And there, the regulation, the earth removal regrading application or regulation provides for waivers of certain sections. And we're asking for 2 waivers, one of which has to do with the earth removal regulation, which is generally was adopted for actual earth mining, but does apply to, in certain circumstances, to site plans and special permits. Section 3 of 25.5 talks about that you can't have more than 5 acres opened in your excavation at one time. And waiver under section 9 has to do with grading within 50 feet of abutting properties or within 50 feet of a street, which is the case in this with respect to, there will be some grading adjacent to Wallingford Road, simply just to make the proposed cul-de-sac street meet the grade of Wallingford Road. At this point, we have not been before the Wetlands Commission. There have been a couple of quorum issues, and there are one member has recently resigned, moved out of town, and 2 new members have been appointed. We hope that there will be a sufficient quorum there at their next meeting, which is next Tuesday.
So that being said, Mr. Fazone, would you be opposed to an extension to get us past August for this?
Well, I believe when you look at the statute, Section 8-7D is the statute, it gives you an automatic extension of the 35 days to complete your public hearing I don't know the exact.
It's until the Wetlands Commission acts and gets the report to the commission, so it'll give you an extra 35 days. So we don't have to request the 65 days yet. But
I just don't want to,
it's a
you know, I
conservative
mean,
approach.
Yeah.
there's a big list from Pierce. We have a lot of engineering comments we have to go over. I mean, there's a 9-page letter from Mr. Shrum. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we've gone over that I know we're not going to get done in 2 meetings. Just-
Okay,
no,
I
not gonna
understand that, but I just.
And then we have
you-
August
you-
off. So that's really going to
I-
curveball us. So
Yeah.
I don't want to be pressured to make a decision without knowing that I have that extension going.
I think at the earliest, we would have and I'll know better by the time this reconvenes, that the earliest we'll have a wetlands decision would be the first Tuesday of August.
Oh,
So
they're not
that-
off in August?
They only meet
Only
once.
They have 2 meetings a month, 1 meeting in August.
Okay, all right.
So you'll have 35
35 days from
that point.
So that brings us
But
into
we-
That brings
September.
in September.
Yeah,
It gets-
and we can address that. We will be cooperative with the commission. in
Yeah, I
granting-
just don't want to be
granting
pressed. I mean,
extensions.
I don't want that.
Just as general background, the 2016 Plan of Conservation and Development generally speaks in favor of cluster subdivisions. And if you, ultimately, I'll prepare an exhibit with all of these references that we give you, but page Roman numeral II in the beginning introduction, and then page 23 itself of the Plan of Conservation Development has very general terms favoring cluster subdivisions and actually recommending that they be more favorably looked upon, and actually to take a look at the regulation yourself to make it somewhat easier to come in and propose a cluster subdivision, maybe even smaller size lots. Finally, for the general portion, the Water Pollution Control Authority granted a new feasibility approval for this proposed subdivision, and a copy of those minutes have been submitted along with our application. With that, I would like to call on Andrew Quirk of Cratchit and Jones, the engineer on the project, and he's going to go over the details of the subdivision.
Good evening, Chair, Commission members. Sure, yeah.
That's good right
They've got to be able to see it, don't
there.
they?
They can see it.
Okay.
Good evening, Chair, Commission members. My name is Andrew Quirk, professional engineer and principal with Cratchit Jones and Associates in Milldale and Southington, Connecticut. Before you should have the complete set of plans, and I'll reference those in the presentation, beginning with sheet E1.
You should have the reduced set in your packet. Should include the, I'll give a few from the office.
We're just gonna take 5 minutes just to have them get because we don't have this right now.
And I guess if I could, just for future
Yeah, we have
references,
all little ones.
for,
No, go that way with that, and then these guys, go that way with you guys.
for,
Yeah.
for future hearings, just for myself, is the monitor, is that something that's available?
What was that?
Is the monitor something that's available, or?
We'd have to talk to the tech inside.
Okay. Because I can bring it on a
Yeah, you got
USB
5 minutes.
or
Can you
something.
do it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Go right in there and ask them.
Mike.
Go. Well, let's do it.
What do you think?
We got a little recess while, Okay, let's go forward.
Keep going. Okay.
Should.
Not yet. Wait, give it another half hour.
Okay. So within your package on sheet E1 describes the existing parcels totaling 24.07 acres between the Talmadge Road parcel and the Wallingford Road parcel. Within that acreage, there are 3.58 acres of wetlands as delineated by Matt Sanford. Yeah, we could do this as well.
Welcome to the 21st century.
Everybody in the audience see that on the street?
Not really.
You can get closer.
So
So your existing is 20.
it's 24.07 acres between what's shown between the two parcels on sheets E1 and E2. Yeah, there's sheet E2 showing the Talmadge Road parcel with Talmadge Road to the west at the top of the sheet, and then the remaining parcel at the bottom of the sheet, which is where it joins sheet E1. And then sheet S1 shows both of the parcels with the overall development plan. So this is probably between sheet S1 and G1, the best way to review the overall development. S1 as in subdivision and G1 as in grading. Those are the two overall plans. So as an overview on sheet S1, again, this is a cluster subdivision designed per section 42 of the zoning regulations, and thereby reducing the overall disturbance by concentrating the development and then providing a more open space. There are a total of 20 lots proposed, with 16 lots being served by a public town road from Wallingford Road, and that includes the existing home. And then 4 lots served by private drives off of Talmadge Road. The entire development will be served by public water and sewer.
So the existing house stays?
Correct. Correct. That's shown. That is shown as Lot 8. Lot 8 is the lot that contains the existing house on sheet S1. So I organized the details of the presentation just following the format of section 42. So I'll reference that frequently, and the order in which I describe the items follows those regulations from section 42. So first, in terms of the qualifying standards in this type of development, it's required that the proposal have a minimum of 20 lots, and we are proposing exactly 20 lots. There must be a minimum of 3.7 acres of open space, and we're providing more than double that with 9.1 acres of open space. The development must be served by public water and sewer. There is public water on Talmadge Road and Wallingford Roads that will be extended to the development. We have received a conceptual sewer extension for the project, and there was a previous wetland crossing that was approved. We're going to seek a reapproval of that, but it's the same crossing that was previously approved for connection of the public sewer from Talmadge Road up through the parcel to serve all the lots by public sewer, public gravity sewer. All of the utilities will be underground in accordance with the regulations. The open space This is not part of your package. But what I did is I prepared from the town GIS, the open space mapping, just to show the correlation of the proposed open space with other open space areas. So on this parcel, on this display, what I've shown is from your town GIS, highlighted in yellow is, hopefully you can still see this on the end there, is the 24 acres of the Talmadge Road and the Wallingford Road parcel as part of this development. And then this is Talmadge Road, Wallingford Road, and then I've highlighted the gray shaded areas from the town GIS, and I outlined them in green, the open space areas surrounding, in the surrounding area of the project. So for Talmadge Crossing, there's a privately homeowners association open space area here as part of that cluster subdivision development, and then also to the north. And the proposal for the 9.1 acres is outlined in red. And so that would provide, in terms of a passive protection of the wetland area, and connect to those two open space areas, providing a corridor for the wildlife area. There's 2 vernal pools that were identified within that wetland area. And
Is it the Copper Beach subdivision? It's right next, and that's the open spaces are going to continue. Okay.
correct, I'm
All
sorry,
right, thank
yes. Yep. So it would be contiguous with those. The proposed open space for this development would be maintained by a homeowners association. So it's not going to be the same associations, but it's passive open space that would interconnect for the benefit of the wildlife corridors, the wetland habitat, and the vernal pools that are there, and interconnecting those. The number of lots per the regulation, per your regulations, is 42.2.7. Those calculations are also on sheet G1. There's a table in the top left. I won't go through all the details of it, but there's a calculation of the gross land area that does account for any steep slopes, the 3.6 acres of wetlands. There are no defined floodplain by FEMA on this property. But all of those are accounted for per your regulation to determine the maximum density that's allowed, and which is 20 lots, and that's what's proposed is 20 lots. So we meet the regulation of the maximum number of lots allowed. Also on sheet S1 is the zoning table per the dimensional requirements in section 42. All the lots will be a minimum of 25,000 with 140-foot width and 50 feet of frontage. The public town road is designed in accordance with the subdivision regulations. It is a 30-foot wide town public road that would serve those 16 lots off of Wallingford Road. And it does have a circular cul-de-sac. The zoning regulations talk about a hammerhead or a circular cul-de-sac option. We're showing the standard town circular cul-de-sac. Again, on sheet S1, this is that public town road that's proposed. It does talk about where feasible trying to connect, if possible, the town roads. In this particular case, to connect from Wallingford Road to Talmadge Road with a through street would have tremendous impacts to the wetland corridor. This is all a wetland area. On lot 2. I don't know if I have that dimension offhand. No, it's less than 600 feet because the easement there is 450. So yeah. So it just wouldn't be feasible to interconnect the two streets. the impact to the wetland environment, disturbing the vernal pool areas. So that's why we've proposed the dead-end street with the town standard cul-de-sac. The plans also do show sidewalks on both sides, but we are requesting the waiver of the sidewalks on the easterly side of the town road for this section. And section 6.10.1 does allow to seek such a waiver at the discretion, of course, of the commission. We're requesting the waiver first, given that it is a dead-end street, so it would only be the traffic on the street that would be traveling, and having a cul-de-sac, having sidewalks on one side of a cul-de-sac would be reasonable given the traffic volume. The other is that this area here, abutting 668 Wallingford Road, could be, and more shown a lot better on the upper screen. That area could be more easily graded to drain more properly, having the additional 10 feet, because we'd have the 6-foot shelf and then the 4-foot walk. So that area could be more properly graded to drain. That property drains towards the subdivision so that water could be received with more proper grading in that area. Also, if the sidewalks were to be required in that area, it would put the burden of the maintenance on the existing abutting property that's not part of the development. And that sidewalk would not connect to another existing sidewalk system. We did review this with town staff as part of reviewing those comments as well. And I don't want to speak for the town engineer, but he seemed to be in agreement. And I would just ask that maybe we could get an opinion, maybe more formally at the time for that, if that's something that could be entertained. With regards to grading within 50 feet of the perimeter of the project, again, that's the area, of course, in order to access Wallingford Road, we would be within 50 feet of Wallingford Road for grading to establish the town road. This would also be within 50 feet of 668 Wallingford Road. And then we do have some minor grading just for the establishment of the driveways along Talmadge Road, all of those being within 50 feet of either abutting properties or town
So there's no
right-of-ways.
shared driveways.
We didn't propose it as shared driveways,
Okay,
no.
good.
With regards to stormwater management, we went through that in detail with town staff, but it is a public road system with your standard catch basin inlets, pipe system. It is the same stormwater basin that was previously approved by the Wetland Commission and this commission, whereby there's no increase in runoff through the 100-year storm event for the entire site. The discharge rates are attenuated. The project is not proposed to be phased in terms of construction because the regulations, in terms of cluster regulations, do not allow phasing when you have 20 lots or less. So given that we can't phase the project, it's possible that more than 5 acres could be disturbed at any point in time because we don't have that phasing limit. The actual disturbance at any time, I think, would be less depending on how the sales of the homes are. Also, much of the site from Wallingford Road, the tree line is back pretty similar to where much of this development is. This is also an area that is not wooded, but of course soil disturbance constitutes disturbance. But because of that issue without not being able to phase the construction is why we're seeking that waiver of the requirement that we could have more than 5 acres at any given time disturbed. The total site disturbance on the plans as shown is 10.9 acres between the Talmadge Road development and the Wallingford Road side development, a total of 10.9. We did receive copies of letters from the public, and we did also receive the comments from town staff. We had a meeting last Wednesday with town staff and went through those comments in detail. And I think we're in a position to be able to address those. The plans have not been revised as of yet because we want to obviously take into account the public hearing and the commission feedback and try to make the revisions all at once. But I would say that all the comments that were there and listed, we had a clear direction as to how to address those engineering and staff comments.
With town staff, with the cul-de-sac there and all, did you also have a conversation with them about where you're gonna put all the snow? Or you're gonna haul it out with wheelbarrows?
Well, it would be a town
How
road.
are you gonna get out of there?
It would be a town road, and the cul-de-sac
Well,
does
you
meet
gotta
the
drive
town
it
road
up.
standards.
In the street, center.
And so it would be, we do have the driveways, we purposely place them to the far left and right edges of the cul-de-sac, leaving the end of the cul-de-sac as they plow down the street. It would be expected that it would be plowed, I don't know if I have the other color, but it would be plowed all in the area at the end of the cul-de-sac, away from where the two driveways are proposed.
Mr. Natale.
Couple questions for you, and this is for the public too. So cluster subdivision, you're looking for a total of 24 lots.
20.
20.
Twenty.
I'm sorry, 20 over here. How many are allowed right now if you wanted to build?
I do not.
Based on the current zoning, how many houses can be built?
There's 24 acres.
I'm asking.
Well, it would be it would be the 24 acres minus the 3.58, which leaves 20.5. It would be approximately 20. I would have to verify the calculation, but approximately 20.
Okay.
There's no gain.
Okay, I want to go on the record for that. So with the cluster subdivision versus what's approved right now. So right now we have to approve the 55 and up on a private road, private trash, private recycling, private plowing, probably very few kids because it would be 55 and up. What's the benefit to the town and the residents of the town with public road, public trash, public recycling, public plowing, and then having families in there with kids and on the school system? So sell me on the benefits of this for the town.
I might defer you on the court case.
Well, there certainly will be a difference. The buildings that are being built, the houses that are being built will be substantially larger. Greater.
Outside of the taxes, what's the benefit for the town?
It's a different use. It is a residential use. The perception to the public during the last presentation was that what we were presenting was not in harmony with the neighborhood. This is a strict residential use in a residential neighborhood. You mentioned Copper Beach. Is that the same subdivision as Talmadge Crossing? Is that, they go by the same name? It's Copper Beach Road, but that is a cluster subdivision also. And so this abuts up to that.
Mr. Bowman wants to add something.
If I'm not mistaken, and I could be, Strathmore Woods cluster. Ashley Court cluster. Talmadge, whatever, Copper
Tal-
Beach. So the property is surrounded by, not surrounded, but everything side of it has all been cluster subdivision.
If you look, well, the plan of conservation and development certainly encourages cluster development.
As did the 55 up and probably 4 or 5 other
50,
uses.
55 and up probably came in under the diversity of housing, a diversity of housing.
What's the average cost of these homes?
In the mid 400s. Yeah, at least in the mid 400s.
Same as the.
Maybe,
Same as
well,
the
more.
55 and over?
These are quite a bit bigger. Some of them are 3,000 square feet. It would be quite a bit more than that.
Because those are like 470, right around there.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact number on the others, but these will be substantially more. We can get that number. Mr. Lovely had a death in his family and not available this evening.
Any other questions from? Okay, anyone from the public wishing to ask any questions? Come on up. Just give your name and address for the record, please.
Well, we have more to our presentation.
Well, I understand that, and we're keeping it open, but they've been patiently waiting. Just let them
But
speak.
we have
over.
a traffic engineer here,
Oh,
so we'd like to get him. He's here
okay.
this evening.
Yeah, let's get him out done. You're right. I'm sorry. Yeah. We don't want him to rush home.
For the record, Scott Hesketh, licensed engineer at the firm of F.A. Hesketh and Associates, East Granby, Connecticut. For a minute, I'd be happy to. Hesketh. And our office is in East Granby, Connecticut. For a minute there, I thought I was getting off the hook, but I got dragged back in. That's fine. I am the author of the June 29th, 2022 traffic impact report, which was submitted as part of this application. As you've heard during the presentation, it's a 20-lot cluster subdivision, which includes one existing home on the parcel, 16 lots to access Wallingford Road, and 4 lots to access Talmadge Road. The roadways in question are Wallingford Road, which lies in the east-west orientation. In the vicinity of the site provides about 26 feet of pavement with a single travel lane in each direction, double yellow center line. The roadway is posted at 25 miles per hour. Talmadge Road originates at an unsignalized intersection with Wallingford Road and extends in a northerly direction past the subject site. Again, the roadway provides approximately 26 feet of pavement, a single travel lane in each direction. It's also posted at 25 miles per hour. In the course of preparing our study, we reviewed counts from the Connecticut Department of Transportation. The Connecticut DOT had counts on Wallingford Road, I believe to the west of Talmadge Road, from June of 2019. That count indicated an average daily traffic volume of about 2,500 vehicles, morning peak hour of 200, and an afternoon peak hour of 283
That's both ways, right?
vehicles. Two directional traffic, that's
Yeah.
correct.
I remember that. Yeah.
Our office installed the traffic volume counter in July of 2021 at the location of the proposed site access drive. We measured an average daily traffic volume of 1,930 vehicles with a morning peak hour of 132 and an afternoon peak hour of 160. Slightly lower, but we are on the other side of Talmadge Road. And it was also during COVID during that time, so the volumes were somewhat lower. We conducted manual turning movement counts at the intersection of Wallingford Road with Talmadge Road and Terramac, and during July of 2021. To generate the background traffic volumes in our report, we used the higher CONDOT volumes from 2019. The turning movement percentages we observed during our July 2021 counts, and adjusted the volumes upwards using a 2% per year growth rate to a design year 2024. So I believe we have a background traffic volume which should be indicative of peak hour volumes along the roadway pre-COVID. Again, projected to a design year 2024 when it might be expected that these units will be open and come online. To generate the traffic volumes from the proposed development, we did use the Institute of Transportation Engineers trip generation report, it's a standard engineering reference. It allows engineers and planners the ability to project traffic volumes from proposed developments based on traffic volume counts that have been conducted at existing operating developments throughout the country. Included within that report is Land Use Code 210, single-family detached housing units. And based on the information in that report, the proposed 20 units at this location is projected to generate on average 230 trips during a daily period. So 115 entering and 115 exiting movements, with a morning peak hour of 17 trips and an afternoon peak hour of 22 trips, or about one trip every 3 minutes on average for the development. Based on the turning movement counts, we had a directional distribution of 40% to and from the east on Wallingford Road, 40% to and from the west along Wallingford Road, and 20% to the north, to and from the north on Talmadge Road. We conducted capacity analysis calculations at that intersection for both the combined traffic volume conditions. We also looked at the intersection of the Wallingford Road and the proposed site driveway, and all movements on all approaches operated at a level of service A or B during peak hours, which means that the average vehicular delays were less than 15 seconds per vehicle on average on the side street approaches. On the main street approaches, Wallingford Road, all traffic passed through the intersection with delays less than 10 seconds on average. So we've got excellent levels of service at both locations where there's potentially an impact of the site traffic. We reviewed the available intersection site distances at the proposed roadway location and at the four individual driveways to Talmadge Road. The intersection site distances were in excess of 425 feet in each direction at all locations. The 425-foot site distance meets the current CONDOT and AASHTO requirements for an 85th percentile speed of 35 miles per hour. As indicated earlier, both roadways are posted at 25 miles per hour. And a recent speed count conducted by the town, the police department here in Cheshire on Wallingford Road indicated an 85th percentile speed of 35.63 miles per hour. And again, the AASHTO requirement for that 35 miles per hour is 390 feet. We have an excess of 425 at all locations, and significantly more than that. We also took a look at the latest 3 accident data, the Yukon Crash Data Repository. We looked at all accidents on Wallingford Road within the town of Cheshire and on the full length of Talmadge. During the most recent 3-year period, there were a total of 7 accidents, which involved a total of 10 vehicles. There were 3 accidents recorded all of the accidents actually were recorded on Wallingford Road. 3 of them east of Old Town Road, 2 at the intersection of Talmadge and Tamarack, 1 accident east of Talmadge Road, and 1 accident located west of Windermere Court. 2 of the accidents were angled accidents. Those were the 2 that occurred at the intersections. 1 was a sideswipe accident, and 4 accidents were fixed objects, meaning someone had gone off the road, hit a mailbox, a telephone pole, a tree, or a curb. There was 1 minor injury recorded in the accidents, no fatalities. 6 of the 7 accidents were property damage only. Based on the information, the background traffic volumes, the projected traffic volumes, based on the calculated levels of service, both at the existing unsignalized intersection of Wallingford Road and Talmadge Road, and the projected levels of service at the proposed site access driveways, it is our professional opinion that the approval of and construction of this development will not have a significant impact on the traffic operations of local roadways, should this commission deem that this plan is acceptable. The development is not large enough to require approval from the department, from the Office of the State Traffic Administration, and the access points are both town roadways, so the Connecticut Department of Transportation will not be reviewing for an encroachment permit either. So we will not be making applications to either of those agencies. If the commission has any specific questions related to traffic, or if the public has any more comments, I'd be happy to address them at the appropriate time.
Mr. Bricado.
A couple questions.
Sure.
The code 210 that you use for this, is that the same code that was used for the 55 and older, or is that at a different?
It's a different land use code. The 55 and older was an age-restricted development. Basically, the single-family detached units are generally larger units. They generally include couples with children. They tend to have more trips per unit on a daily and hourly basis. Round numbers, single-family development has approximately 10 trips per day per unit. The age-restricted were more in the range of 5 to 6.5. Obviously, if you're not taking the kids to school, picking them up at soccer practice, you're not doing as much shopping theoretically. And age-restricted developments tend to have people that they might have 1 or 2 homes. They may not be there many months out of the year, so that tends to drive the averages down. In terms of peak hours, age-restricted developments tend to have more retired people, so they have the ability to go out during off-peak hours more often than younger working people. So
This might be for Anthony. Do you know how these homes are heated? Are they oil? Is there gas in that area?
Propane.
Okay. So each home will have a tank? Okay. So when you do these calculations, do you take in consideration there are bigger homes, so they're going to need more trips of propane or oil or whatever's heating it? And then with the home like this, with youngsters and kids and a bigger family in there, they're probably ordering more stuff from Amazon. And do you take in consideration all those trucks that are going to be coming and going constantly for Amazon?
well, the ITE numbers are based on counts conducted at existing facilities. So yes, those types of numbers are in there. It might be a handful more or a handful less, depending on what development you're looking at. But the mail truck comes once a day. The UPS truck probably comes once a day, maybe twice. FedEx comes once a day, maybe twice. The garbage truck still comes once a week, whether you have 1 unit or 100 units. And the school bus comes, once a day or twice a day, depending on how many schools you have in town. So those
Yeah, I'm just
numbers
looking
are
at the
those numbers are
difference between
included.
the 55 and this, there's a substantial more travel.
Well, yeah, that's why the numbers, again, for a single family development, it's about 10 per day per unit. And that's an extra what 18 trips, which takes into account things like UPS and that kind of thing. So yes, I believe those numbers are in there. Thank you.
Anyone else? Question? On traffic? Okay. I had the same question also as far as what's the difference in generation between the 55 and over versus this development. So it sounds like it's about 30%, 40% more.
And this particular development is probably about 80 more trips for the same number of units in a day. But I think the previous applications,
Was
I think,
it 150?
huh?
Was it 150 a day before? I think the last application was 150 trips a day.
I think the last application, the trips were slightly higher, but there was there was a lot more units in the development. I think it was 34 units. So
And you said how many? 5 a day, right? So 100, that'd be 170. So
Yeah.
it'd be 170, right? And now with this, you're saying 10, that's 200.
10 is 160.
Oh.
It's only 16 lots. It's only 16 lots in a cul-de-sac. The other 4 are on Talmadge Road, totally separate. So if it's 10, it's
Oh,
160.
okay, 160. So really, it's not really that much more. Okay.
Yeah.
And I know we discussed it till we were blue in the face, how many cars went down the road the last time. So with the 2,500, we had the police department involved. We did all that. So, okay. Any other questions? No? I'm going to have you sit down. I'm going to have the public.
I will
come up and-
remain till the end of the hearing.
Okay. I'm going to ask the public to come up and ask the traffic engineer, since his time is,
Just traffic?
yeah, let's do traffic right now first. Is there any other traffic questions? Does anyone have any traffic questions? No? You might get out of here easy. Okay. All right. Mr. Mazzone, are you comfortable letting somebody come up and ask a question right now? Okay. There you go. Name and address for the record, please.
Matt Wage, 669 Wallingford Road. And that's in Cheshire. WAGE, just like in minimum, because I'm short. I'm organized this time, folks.
Okay.
I've got a couple of handouts for you.
How many you got?
The first thing I'm giving you is an email that I received from Lovely concerning the development when we were talking about the 55 plus development, in which he says that if he's satisfied with, building 16 to 20 mega mansions, it's the last line in there. Because it kind of answers the question, what is a conventional in this deal? And one of the things with a, what do we call it? One of the things is you have to compare the cluster to a conventional. They haven't provided a conventional print, which is supposed to be part of the package. And, using that as a comparison, the key points from 42, semi-organized. And I'll read from this. In order to approve a cluster, in the judgment of the Planning and Zoning Commission, this is from section 42. In the judgment of the Planning and Zoning Commission, the lot layout, use, and provisions of proposed open space does not provide significant benefit to the proposed community and/or the town of Cheshire beyond that which would normally be derived from a conventional development. There's literally no difference between the cluster development and the land that would be locked in a conventional development. They're about the same size if you were to lay it out, because the land that's open space is predominantly wetlands and it's not buildable because the type of soil that it is. I'll get into that a little bit later. And also, the applicant shall also submit as part of the application a preliminary conventional subdivision plan, which they haven't, had not greater than a 1 and 100 foot plan. The conventional plan shall provide sufficient detail to measure for fulfillment of requirements and which will clearly present to the commission for the difference in the two proposals. So I'm going to help try to present those differences as best I can. Also, as a point of clarity, Andrew was up here, the minimum number of units allowed for a cluster is 20. You can go as high as you want. The calculations there in 42, 2.7, whatever. So you can't go below 20. 42. Okay. I have notes to myself here, so give me a little bit of time. Okay, the other thing that I'm going to get into is the inland wetlands soil as delineated by an official inland wetlands maps are delineated by a soil scientist in the field.
Anything to
Chairman?
do with wetlands,
Yeah.
we're not going to address because
I
that goes to
understand that.
Wetlands Commission.
But he
And I-
has a right to say what he wants.
Okay.
You call him up and let him
Okay.
permission to speak.
I am
He has a
not-
Right to say what
Are-
he wants.
He just has to understand we can't.
Yeah, we can't do
No,
anything with
but
wet,
he
we can't do
still
anything with the
has a
wetlands.
I'm not asking you to do anything with
Okay.
wetlands. In
Okay.
fact, on July 12th, I sent a letter to this commission with my concerns about the wetlands assessment.
Okay.
But it's tied to that because we'll just fly over to, because when I was complaining about the assessment itself and how it was determined, Mr. Vazone said that they had done an assessment, and I don't bring enough copies for everybody, but Mr. Vazone, this is the SLR assessment, I believe.
This is the wetland report that was submitted to the Wetlands Commission.
Okay.
Okay,
It's not in your packet because it's part of the wetlands
Yeah, it's Wetlands
application.
Commission, so.
exactly. But there is something that's behind that because I have, of course, one more handout. And this is where it gonna start to make sense.
September.
I'm sure there's extras. I didn't keep a copy for myself, I forgot. Okay, what I just gave you, again, 42.2.7. Okay, thanks. In the computation of the amount of property that's available to do the cluster subdivision or the 55 plus, it requires that the inland wetland soils as delineated by an official inland wetlands map or as delineated by a soil scientist in the field. On E1 and E2, you have delineation by Matt Sanford of SLR saying he delineated that thing. On each one of those points, since you have the larger prints on E1, and you also have a copy of it, which I provided, the town maps, which is the alternative to the delineation, would be the GIS map, which is the sheet 1. There's a 1992 topo map, which also shows the wetlands for that area. It's a dashed line. It actually came out fairly good. And the other is a portion of that map E2. The problem that I have is to delineate a wetland is to delineate the total wetland, because the total wetland computation, you need the total amount of wetlands in order to provide the computation. It's like saying, I'm going to go measure an acre. I did the front of the acre. It's 200 feet. Therefore, I must have an acre. Not looking at the depth or the shape or the other things that are conducive to measurement. Matt Sanford went in, and that's part of what I'll read out of his, still have my copy, of his wetland assessment. He put in 62 flags. If you look in your print that you have E1, and you go down the back of the larger piece of property, parcel B, you'll see flag 56 is the last flag. It says WF 56. You'll see numbers in the big prints. Hard to explain where it is, but you can see little WFs, 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 and there's WFs with numbers on them. The WF with the number is a flag from him delineating the wetland markings. So if you look at E1, you'll see the flags. If you look at E2, you'll see the flags that were placed onto Talmadge. The problem with the wetlands delineation is twofold. One, he did not measure the back line for the wetlands, so we don't have that dimension. So we can't tell how much the dimension is. Also, he placed a total of 62 flags on that property. The highest flag number that I could find was 56, which occurred at a really strange, and by background, I can read prints. I'm a master gardener, landscape designer, New York Botanical Garden certified. But there's a constriction in the wetlands on print E1. You can go down, it's kind of wide, then it gets really narrow, then it gets wide again. That's where flag 56 is. I don't know if you can find it or not. When I compared that print, E1, to the GIS mapping and the topo mapping, the wetlands are entirely different. In other words, the way it was delineated is significantly smaller than what the town has for wetlands.
On a GIS map.
Yep.
Just for your information, it's not 1,000% right.
Oh.
I mean, and I've I've experienced on my end.
I agree with
because-
you 100%.
So just because this map, GIS shows this wetlands, it's not. It
I agree
cannot
with you
be correct. So I mean,
100%.
I think that like, I understand your
I
concern.
agree.
And
Nope.
I
I'm going to get
appreciate
to
it.
that.
But I know for a fact, because I've had it happen to me, it's not
Right.
always true.
I agree with you 100%.
So, I mean,
I
whatever
agree
the
with you
engineer's going
100%.
out and doing the perk test and everything else, that's measured, whatever. This is,
GIS and the topo
I mean, the line
maps.
was going right through the center of somebody's garage. I mean, like in,
Yep.
they.
I agree with you.
Yeah. it
I agree with you
happens. So-
100%. So I actually physically took a walk out to the property today. I went in through Clearview Drive, which goes into the back of the wetlands that are associated with Copper Beach, that open space. And then if I walked north from there, I would hit the Kurtz property, because the Kurtz property abuts to it. There's also wetlands that flows through that. If you did 62 flags on the southern, the first flag I should come to is his last marking flag. That was my logic.
Yep.
So as myself, my dog, we walked up, I spotted a flag. I walk up to the flag, I pick it up, it's flag 56. And then it lines up, the next flag up was 55. So now I'm on the Kurtz property at that point of constriction. When I stood back between 55 and 56 in a straight line, where the wetland should go off to my right, I should be on dry land, I was standing in wetlands because the markings just stopped. There's nothing on the northern line delineating the wetlands, and there's nothing there. So it just didn't make sense to me that something could be constricted. And I agree 100% that the GIS and the topo maps are merely a guide, and to get an accurate assumption of
Yes.
wetlands, you have to physically go there. And looking at the flags, and remember that there's different types of wetlands. You could stand on the side of a river, and that may not be wetlands because of the soil types and everything else.
Yeah.
Because these are vernal pools and the actual soils that are out there, which is part of the assessment, there's 7 acres of soil that basically doesn't drain. It's what's causing the vernal pools. It's what lets the water collect there, stay there, and feed other areas. In the plus 55, I made comment that the Talmadge Road, that there's an intermittent stream, and there was for the entire month of March and April and May. So water's flowing right where the driveways are going. And that's not indicated as wetland, but that's technically wetlands. So when I went into this,
But again, we're not the Wetlands Commission, so we really.
you're not the Wetlands Commission,
And
but
that's.
your job,
Yeah.
your job is to make sure that they comply with the zoning regulations that delineated, properly delineated. You have to use the town map or whatever, or go out and verify.
Mr. Chairman, could I
Go ahead.
interrupt this?
Yes.
So the town map, it's not your gig. It's just an inventory of areas that are considered wetland soils. But a regulated area is defined by the soil characteristics in the state of Connecticut. So the GIS map is really a guide and it's used as a regulatory document, but like I said earlier, it's an inventory. It's not a
It's a guide.
defined document. An assessment done by a soil scientist, such as what Matt Sanford did, that actually will say what's regulated, what's not. And if a wetlands commission, and this is out of your jurisdiction, so I think that we should really stress that, if they feel that there's an issue, they can hire a third party, have another soil scientist go to the property and assess whether Mr. Sanford missed the ball.
But that'd be entirely up
that's-
to the Wetlands.
it's
Commission,
entirely to the wetlands. It's not for
That's
the
not you.
commission.
That's not you.
us. It's not us.
Agreed, 100%. I mean, I know wetlands. I've actually taken courses in wetlands, river restoration, wetland reservations, and all that other stuff. And I might disagree with what Matt Sanford would stake, but it's not going to be by much. In fact, when I saw what he did, my disagreement wasn't by much.
Okay.
Unless I was on the other side of that the flag 56.
Mr. Bowman wants to ask. a
So then I looked at his actual document because he talked about, and this is on the Appendix A, the Wilbraham and Menlo, which is one of the soil types. That's what they call hydrophytic. In other words, probably pronounce it, water-loving plants love to live there. And you can walk and you can say, that's a wetlands plant. There's other areas as well. But he says there's 3 different types of wetlands there, and I agree with that 100%. And he said on Appendix A, and you have this, it's like the first page of Appendix A, second page. He had the forested wetland flags 40 to 44 and 50 to 62. Remember, the only flag I saw was 56. And when you do a site survey,
But here's the thing, Mr. Wage, and I really, I got to stress this. When you're walking and doing this and you're going on somebody else's property without permission, that you're kind of like.
I'm looking for the first flag.
I understand that, but it is a trespass. I mean, like I'm
Okay.
not condoning that.
All right.
So I mean, that's, I just want to address that right now, Mr. Bowman, go ahead.
Everything he is saying, he has a valid point. It just, this needs to be addressed at the wetlands, not here. We're here strictly for planning and zoning. We are going to keep this public hearing open until wetlands acts on this. If wetlands has questions on it, which is where he should present,
Right.
then he has to present it there. But
But what I'm saying is the calculation, let me finish. Let's not even think about the flags. But his documentation shows up to 62 flags. I've reviewed every print. The only highest number flag I can find is 56. He also goes on to say, and
But like I said, that's still not gonna, it's still wetlands.
it's still wetlands, but he also gives the approximate amount of wetlands on the property based upon his delineation.
And that is,
And that is, along the frontage of Talmadge Road, adjacent to dry open meadow, is an approximately a 0.29 acre emergent and wet meadow wetland. On the print, E2, or when they calculate this size, they use a 0.06, which is incorrect. He goes on to talk about parcel B, which is the larger 18-acre parcel. And he says, within parcel B, the Palestrine Forested Wetland Community comprises approximately 4.2 acres of wetlands on the site. So now you're at 4.4 acres. And then he goes on to say in the same document, which is their document, a patch of common reed-dominated emergent wetland is located between wetland flags 43 and 44 and 45, which are there. This wetland is seasonally saturated and covers approximately 0.31 acres. So right now, you're at about I wrote it down. The calculation, whoops.
Yeah.
It's the calculation. In other words, they come up and say there's 3.5 acres. There's over 4.6 acres. At 4.6 acres, they can fit 19.5 units, which is shy of the 20 units by their own admission. So at 19.5, you round that down to 19, a cluster doesn't fit there because of the wetlands, by their documentation, not by walking the property and not having a third party delineate it. It's by their own admission.
so that's your statement. Okay, thank you.
All right?
Yep.
The other thing, last thing, oh, I have the actual number here. The wetlands acreage is 4.8 based upon the SLR assessment, which is an approximation. It's not coming through a map, but that's what the wetlands soil specialist came up with. Also, the regulation concerning, which I forgot about the first time. The vehicle access to a cluster, vehicle access, to at least 90% of all dwelling units and garages shall be from loop drives or permanent cul-de-sacs and not through collector roads, be they public or private. Talmadge and Wallingford are both collector roads. Having a road that's a dead end off of Wallingford Road is acceptable because you can do that all day long. Having driveways, which are neither loop but individual driveways, which actually go over wetlands, is not acceptable. You're having a cluster, which you're saying, well, 40 or 20% of my houses are over here, accessed by driveways to a collector road, which is not in the regulations. And then the other 16 are over there. So it doesn't fit the regulation in that respect either.
Thank you.
42.3.2.
Okay, here we go. Mr. Bacata has a question.
42.3.2.
So are you in favor of this or the 55 and older? Oh.
I'm
Are
in
you-
favor.
Which development were you in favor of? The 55 and older or this one?
You
or
know that the
nothing?
55 and older is something that we're actually appealing, and there's a lot of basis for that appeal. But I'm not going to get into that, and I'm not going to get into the differences. I'm one of the plaintiffs in that case. I'm in favor of everybody has the right to develop their land. It's their land. They have to do it within the zoning regs, and they have to do it for a benefit of the public and the surrounding people. I am fully in favor of people having, if they wanted, and there was nobody at the 55 and over that was saying, go ahead, build acre lots. There was nobody that was in denial of that.
Mr. Glidden, does this property qualify for affordable housing?
Yes, it does. Under 830, Connecticut General State Statute 830G, you could have an affordable housing appeal.
Could you tell me approximately how many affordable housing could be put on this property?
Sky's the limit. Applicant can determine. There is no,
Applicant to determine the number of units that are put on this property?
that is correct. As long as three things are met. One, there had to be something that is just unique, environmental sensitive receptor that is unique to the area. It has to outweigh the need of affordable housing. Two, you have utilities. Three, it's a safe situation, meaning emergency services can service the development and people can get in and out through the development in a safe manner. They meet those three bars with a housing applicant. There is no limit on how many units they want to build in the AG application.
And this piece does qualify for that?
That's correct.
And
Sure it
that
would.
would take this pretty much out of our hands because Cheshire standard to the affordable housing regulation in the state of Connecticut?
Correct. Under 830G, you're supposed to have 10% of your housing stock qualify as what's considered affordable. The way you create additional affordable housing units in the state of Connecticut is deed restricted units. 830G gives an avenue to individuals or applicants in communities that don't have 10% of their housing stock deemed affordable. What it basically is an appeal process where they get to override your local regulations. They propose, however, whatever scale they want, the development, provided those three things are demonstrated to me. And the burden of saying no to it in a community that's below 10% is very high for you, extremely high.
You could put affordable housing there easily.
So
Is there height
I
restriction?
guess what I'm saying is
There are no restrictions.
No restrictions for affordable housing.
There are no restrictions. They can build as tall as they want, as big as they want, and as many as they want, provided you meet those three bars I said earlier.
And right now you have your
we have to
Highland
watch
Avenue
what we wish
initiatives,
for.
Yes.
Thank you.
but it has to be affordable housing. There's criteria. It's just like the 55 plus, that was not 55 plus affordable housing, which is one of the reasons I was kind of against that. Mr. Strolla made the comment, and his closing comment was about the person within this area. I'm not going to go through everything, but if they came through and said, we're going to make these affordable, smaller, better, so somebody 55 that's selling or leaving a house that's 400,000 or 300,000 could afford to move there, I would be in full support of that. The person you had in question on Spring Street moved out of a $300,000 house. If she had, long time ago, but it's up to 400,000. So if she did that right now, she'd still end up losing all her equity and getting a loan plus having expenses above that. All right? Hopefully that helped.
Charles Martin, 20 Copper Beach Drive, Cheshire. I understand we have a new town planner and a new town engineer, which I think is great because hopefully it will give better guidance to the Planning and Zoning Commission based on some of the decisions that I've recently seen. So I'm thankful for that. I also think that, I believe it's Mr. Natale, just asked the biggest question that needs to be answered by this board. And that is, what is the benefit of this subdivision, however you look at it, to the town of Cheshire? And the answer to that is there is none. It will tax the water, it will tax the sewer, it will tax the education system, it will tax the traffic. And so Mr. Natale is right on with that question. And that's the question that every member of that board needs to ask themselves. What's the benefit to the town? And secondly, what's the role of the Planning and Zoning Commission? And that is to protect the public, the town of Cheshire itself from overdevelopment, et cetera. And you approved the previous one. And as Mr. Wade said, there's litigation on that to block that because it was such a ridiculous decision made by the board. The board's purpose is to protect the people of Cheshire, not to protect a contractor or a builder within the city or the town of Cheshire. So I think those are critical points that need to be raised. And I echo Mr. Natale's comments because they are truly the whole issue here. We can talk about all of the things about wetlands and we can talk about waivers and we can listen to Attorney Fazzone tell you why this should be done. That's what it's really all about. Secondly, and I've said this before, Mr. Fazzone is a great attorney by all standards. And the engineer here is a great attorney, as is the traffic expert. But they are hired by Mr. Fazzone and they are hired by Lovely Construction. So they're going to say to the board, if Mr. Fazzone is too smart to hire an engineer that's going to say, this is going to be a disaster, or a traffic engineer that's going to say, my God, the traffic on Talmadge there'll be traffic jams on Talmadge and Wallingford. Mr. Fazzone is too smart to do that. The board and the town need to hire independent experts on that to get a view. I realize there's a cost of that, but you can't make a decision based on the biased approach from these folks. And they're great people, they're great at what they do, but they certainly have the best interests of Lovely Construction at heart. I do have a question for the board, which you probably don't have the answer to, but you need to get it. As this is proposed, that big mansion on the property is to be left. So my skepticism says that that's to be left. They're going to build 20 houses. And then when that's all done and everybody's all happy, they'll knock that down and build 4 more. What's going to preclude that from happening?
You're only allowed 16, and according to our regulation, you're only allowed 16 lots in a cul-de-sac. If they tore it down, they could only replace it with 1. Is that correct?
It seems there's a lot of scheming going involved, so I'll take you for your word on that, but I don't know that I believe it. A couple other things I'd like to say. Mr. Bowman's comments about this area is surrounded by a cluster to the north, the south, the east, and west. That perhaps is the most ridiculous comment I've heard tonight, in that just because it's surrounded by clusters, does that mean we put in another one? We just keep putting in clusters until there's no more room left? So I challenge Mr. Bowman on that. That, to me, that's a ridiculous comment. I didn't ask you to respond.
you live in Copper Beach, which
I
is a
do.
cluster zone.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have small lots and then you have open space.
Yeah.
And what I believe he said is if you go down Coleman Road on the Tribadina property, that's another cluster. Isn't it that there's open space? I
What
mean,
he
you say-
said was it's surrounded by clusters, which clusters are
My comment
fine.
was all the clusters that are in that area, and the ones that I mentioned was Ashley Court, Meadowbrook, and Strathmore, created.
Mr. Bowen, can you turn your mic on so we pick you up?
Oh, they created, I'm sorry, thank you. They created a corridor
Yeah.
of open space. So Strathmore's open space backs up to Meadowbrook's open space, which backs up to Ashley Court's open space. So the benefit to the town is once something is put in open space, it can no longer be developed. Therefore, and it does present a wildlife corridor.
Yeah.
For us to
I
live
under-
in.
I understood what you were
It wasn't my
saying.
comment that those are, I made specific recommendations to that because I believe in part of our regulation, our regulation is in reference to an abutting property. And if it wasn't large enough, and I'm going by an old regulation, and it could have changed, if it abuts that type of development, that it can be done even on a smaller piece of property, but I think our regulation has been changed. So, but the benefit to the town is this wetlands corridor creates with your subdivision a larger area for wildlife. And
The
that's
benefit to the town would be not to propose a development at all. I mean, what you're saying is there's going to be a greater corridor. I get that. There'd be even a greater corridor if we didn't have a development.
Yes, but people, that's why the regulations that we have our own regulations, and they're really.
And I'm no
a state
expert.
of Connecticut regulation.
I'm no expert on the regulations. I can tell you from a personal experience, because I do own a home on Copper Beach, that the additional property that I own is ridiculous. It's out on Talmadge or behind somebody else's house. And that was a development put in place to get around the 1 acre requirement. So I have 3/4 of an acre and then I have a 1/4 acre down the street. Ridiculous. But that's a way to get around the requirements of the zoning commission.
Shared,
Yeah.
it's an open space. It's not, you don't really own that quarter. It's a community, the
Right,
association owns it. So
But
it's not.
because of that, you incur a lot of costs. You have a homeowners association that has to have insurance. They have to have directors and officers insurance because if somebody made a mistake. So, you incur a lot of additional costs.
But added to that, right, is that the neighbors of you, if I had a house right beside Copper Beach and you had water runoff issues, I'm going at the association. I'm not going at you personally. I'm going at the association for the
Well,
problem.
if the runoff was from the
The
open
development.
space.
That's what I'm
right.
just trying to say is that it protects you as a homeowner having the association.
Well, if
A little outside the realm of just being a homeowner of a piece of property.
It does if the genesis of that runoff came from the open space. But I have a stream behind my house that goes into a ponding area down on Talmadge that I personally am very concerned about if this development is made, as Mr. Wade said, because that in this spring, that thing really opens up and it flows significantly. So how this development will affect that, I'm not the expert. All I can tell you is it would concern me. And again, I get back to just because we got a lot of clusters doesn't mean we put another one in. I guess my other question to the board would be, why would we waive anything for this development? There are certain requirements in place. There's significant public opposition to this development. And I recognize that we can't stop it. There are certain things that will definitely happen, whether it's 12 houses or 15 or 16. But so something's going to happen there, I suspect. But, why would we waive anything for the contractor? Again, look at the interest of the town and the people versus the contractor. So that's my other issue. Lastly, Mr. Fazzone is way off base saying these houses are going to be $400,000. A 3,000 square foot house is not $400,000. If anybody on this board has seen the price of lumber lately, a 3,000 foot house probably cost you, I'm guessing between 650 and 700,000. So Mr. Fazone is, pardon me?
That's the cost of construction.
Yeah, exactly. So Mr. Fazone is incorrect.
I agree, for the record.
He only agrees because I called him a great lawyer. And lastly, and I have raised this before, I continue to believe because the owners of this property are the Kurtzes, that the board has a conflict of interest. And whether they do or they don't, you can look at me like that. No, listen to me. You can look at me like that, but if there's an appearance of a conflict of interest, there's a conflict of interest. And Mr. Kurtz is using his position with this board for personal gain. And, I believe that's a personal gain on his part. I believe it's a conflict of interest. I've asked the town attorney to look into it. The town attorney has not done that. And clearly, in my opinion, Mr. Kurtz gains by his position on this board. And that's a conflict of interest. And whether you agree or not, if you look at the definition of a conflict of interest, and Mr. Fazone will tell you this as a great attorney, Mr. Fazone will tell you if there's an appearance of a conflict of interest, there's a conflict of interest, and there is an appearance of a conflict of interest. Whether there is or there isn't, I can't tell you. What I can tell you is there's an appearance of that. So I get back to thanking Mr. Natale for the question he asked, because that is the sole question that you have here. I have one other issue, that question for the board. If this does get approved in any way, shape, or form, does Lovely Construction, are they the only people that can build on this property, or could that be transferred to another builder?
Go ahead.
Well, I mean, it's a special permit, runs with the land, so anyone, once it's approved,
Yeah,
Glidden
yeah.
Development can buy it. And
Once it's approved and recorded.
once the commission approves it, the subdivision
recorded.
plan, the notice of grant is filed in the land records, it runs with the land, at least from the special permits
For
perspective.
5 years?
The subdivision, you have 5 years to start work on the subdivision, which could be extended up to 10, but anyone could pursue that development. Mr. Lovely can sell that to, like I said, another company.
Okay. And that's all I have. I just believe that the whole question comes down to what Mr. Natale said, and that should be respected by everyone on this board, and the interest of the town should be put first. Thank you.
Well, they have an old saying, when in doubt, get out, but I agree with you. We don't see that happening here.
Bring up the historic perspective. Dave Schrum, 369 Sir Walter Drive. Got a whole bunch of stuff here, but I guess we'll have more than one hearing, so we can catch up on a lot of the stuff.
Dave, could you speak a little louder and into the microphone, please?
Yeah,
Thank you.
okay. Oh, geez,
We all got your letter.
I'm not
Matt.
being heard, Matt? Geez,
We
that's
all
an
got your
unusual-
letter and we all
that's
read
an
your letter,
unusual
so.
circumstance. No, just a housekeeping thing for future reference. And maybe it was because of COVID, but, and maybe it was just something that happened with this particular one, but when the hearings are posted on the town agendas, the calendar, usually it's the agenda, but very often it's the packet of information that comes to you folks, so the public can see, for example, in this case, the maps and so forth. In this case, that didn't happen. I asked the planning department if I could get a copy. So they sent it out almost instantaneously, so I have to, admire their service levels. But was the posting of the information, whether it's this application or any other application, is that going to be posted on the calendar from here on out? Or is that just because of the COVID situation where you were having off-site meetings?
So when the executive orders were in place, it was a requirement.
Right.
When we're remote or hybrid, it's not a requirement right now. But it's something that if the commission would like staff to continue, we could do that.
It would be a big help. I think it would be a big help, not just to members of the public, but to you folks too. In the lead up to a meeting, before you get the big sheets of paper, you'd have access to it too, which would be a tremendous benefit to you folks. And with today's technology, the click of a button, and maybe there should be, as Mr. Glidden says, it can be added, maybe on really small stuff. Maybe it doesn't have to be done, but with the click of a button, you're probably getting it electronically. Just transfer it to the calendar, and it would be a big help for all concerned. It's just a thought. Questions? The catch basins, the engineer went over that there's going to be catch basins. Where are they and where do they drain to? Is everything going to go into that detention pond from that whole strip all the way down to the cul-de-sac? Or is some of the water still going to go to Wallingford Road, some to the detention pond, and some way in the back that's going to go down and around and come out on Talmadge Road? Where's the water going?
I think we're waiting for the answer on that also through, right in Pierce, right?
And Andrew, the engineer can answer that question. Maybe if Mr. Trump has other questions for the engineer, maybe we
Yeah,
can
why don't
get
we
all those questions and
get
then,
all your
Okay.
questions in
All
and
right.
we'll go from
then
there.
Andrew can have a chance to respond
Yeah.
or if it involves any kind of updated documents, obviously the hearings will be left open. They can come to the next meeting with those answers.
Okay, because again, and you probably have some comments on that from the planning department, is if most of the water is going down under Talmadge Road, there's some issues with that, especially, with the extra hard surfaces that are going to be there, but I can wait on that. It says that the sump discharge is going to be on the individual lots. This is one of my favorite issues, sump pumps. I know the 2 4-letter words, but sump pumps in the old application, the initial application, were going to go into chambers, underground chambers on each lot, because the lots were so small that pumping water out was just going to, wasn't going to work. Are you still going to have chambers? Or is it just going to go out on everybody's lawn, out to the street, into the, and I can pretty much guarantee you that some of those sump pumps are going to be hooked up to the town sewer system. And I know we have regulations on that. And if you want to ask, and I think I asked Mr. Glidden this, go to the finance department and find out how many people have been billed that $100 a day fine for being hooked up to the sewer system with your sump pump. We just had a near catastrophe down at the wastewater treatment plant back in December, which most people don't know about. The more stuff you pump into that system and the more houses you agree to put on that system, you're putting a bigger and bigger strain on the infrastructure. And we should not be putting more and more strain on our infrastructure. Separate story. So that, again, the question is, are you going to have underground chambers or not? Sidewalks on Talmadge. They want a waiver on the east side of the new cul-de-sac road. But there's a section, Copper Beach was required to put in sidewalks all along in front of that development. The sidewalks end right where this development would begin. Why aren't there sidewalks continuing up along there? And I think there's another small section that goes up. We should be connecting that section. No question about sidewalks on Talmadge Road. They should be required. The cul-de-sac. My measurement is it's about 1,300 feet long. I thought we had a rule that was expanded some years back. I'm sure Anthony is the historian on regulations. I think it used to be something like you couldn't have a cul-de-sac more than 500 feet or 800 feet. And I think it was then extended to 1,000. This one is 1,300 feet. You shouldn't have cul-de-sacs that long from a public safety standpoint. Very simple. Take out those 2 extra houses on the end, okay, and you'll probably be all right. Because otherwise, if you say, well, we'll waive that rule too, how long? Next person comes along with 1,400 feet, 1,500 feet, 1,600 feet, how long? There's a cul-de-sac before it really gets to be a problem. It's at 1,300 feet now. You ought to check that out. The mandatory membership by homeowners, this is going to be a town road, right? Not a private road? I think that's what I heard. More infrastructure, but that's okay. And then sewer lines will be the town's too. Just to go back to one of my favorite issues. Why are some pumps a problem? An 8-inch sewer pipe can accommodate up to 200 homes, and this is going to be an 8-inch sewer pipe going all the way down to Talmadge, and it's an 8-inch sewer pipe going from Talmadge out to North Ridge or North whatever it is where it connects into the main system. We're talking about an 8-inch pipe. An 8-inch pipe can accommodate up to 200 homes, but only 5 to 10 sump pumps can quickly overload the same line. As few as 100 sump pumps can quickly overwhelm the sewer treatment plant with millions of gallons of clean water. Blah, 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 blah. That's not my opinion. That's the opinion of the Water Pollution Control Authority who wrote this thing about sump pumps some years ago. Okay, so when you think, now again, that can be, oh, well, that's a water pollution control issue. Okay, and that's an inland wetlands issue. Somewhere this all has to come together. And unfortunately, it's you folks to a certain extent. When I get to water pollution control, probably should have put a gauge at the bottom of Talmadge Road. Because if this thing is as bad as it's likely going to be, the soils there, by the way, are terrible. They're absolutely terrible. That's why in 2016, they came in and they changed the master sewer plan for the town and allowed sewers on the Kurtz property. And somebody earlier questioned the issue of how many could be a legitimate. This is a 2013 map put together by Milo and McBroom showing 11 houses, 1 acre, not a cluster, okay? Very nicely laid out, which was used to perk that property. So when people say, oh, well, you could put in 20 houses there anyway, nah, not under standard rules, okay? The grading waiver, good question. The previous person said, why are we doing waivers? Towards I'll point it out. These houses in here, okay, what you'd be saying is waive the 50 feet grading requirement before somebody else's property is involved. Well, there's properties along Charles Drive. There's a person in the audience here who has a backyard that turns into a lake since that big Kurtz house was built. It's only going to get worse. When they grade those things, if they're allowed to grade up to the boundary line, they're sure as hell not going to drain the water away and towards the new houses. Okay, so this 50-foot waiver thing doesn't look like it's a big deal, but it's a big deal when you get a lake in your backyard. And I think they still have to have some pumps in their backyard to literally pump out their backyard in the spring. It's not something that should be annoyed or avoided. There's no reason for a cluster. By the way, I probably should have said this at the beginning. I was not a fan of the original Lovely development. I don't think it's any secret that a bunch of the residents appealed to the courts to overturn that decision. That is still on hold pending this application. I completely agree that this property will have some houses on it by right. You know, it's frankly, Charles and Sir Walter Drive is pretty much the same type of development, same area, same soils, same everything. You want to put in a cul-de-sac, have a ball. You want to put in some houses, have a ball. You want to put a couple of houses on Talmadge Road, have a ball. But you don't have to put in 20. And you should take diligent care to make sure where the water's going, how the sewers get handled, and how the wetlands are treated. So I am not opposed to this in its entirety by any stretch of the imagination. Mr. Lovely wants to build it, good luck to him. But let's not do too many waivers and amend too many rules and not look into too many details in the process of getting this thing done. Question, is this the only, are there any clusters in town that have been approved in the last 15 or 20 years that had less than 10 units? Where the number of units was waived? Less than 20.
Less than 20.
Less than 20, I'm sorry. Were there any clusters? And I'm thinking of Stroller Court, which was a cluster, which had open space around it, totally unusable open space, by the way, but that's not 20 units. How did that get built as a cluster? Those lots are like a third of an acre, not even a half. Huh? Yeah, off of Jarvis. Yeah, there's not 20 houses there.
For the
I don't think.
record, to move this along,
Yep.
it's not a cluster subdivision.
But you didn't
It's
get
under a
the,
separate regulation in the regulations. It's not a cluster subdivision.
Okay, but you got the smaller lots, third of an acre, because it's surrounded by open space. So technically, it's not a cluster. Thank you. I'll look that up.
The town accepted a nice piece of open space there.
That's, by the way, has that been transferred, Anthony? To the homeowners association?
We'll have to check the record.
Yeah, last time I looked at town, that's terrible open space. And that's the final thing is, the question is, going back to an earlier comment, what is the benefit of this? And clustering is a good idea. It can be environmentally excellent. It can be great. All in favor of open space. But the open space that you're leaving is a trade-off. Some of it is really crummy. The stuff that's going to be left with this development abuts the stuff for Copper Beach. It's swamp, it's woods. I don't think you'd go in there on a bet. So if there's no public benefit to it, I doubt seriously that the people in Copper Beach development even go in there. So if it's something like Meadowcrest.
The public development, the public.
No, it's private. It's private.
It's private, but you're not disturbing it. You're not disturbing it. That's the
Wildlife.
It's wildlife. I mean, you're not disturbing it. That's what open space is, right? I mean, you are Mr. Open Space.
I am.
Don't you want open space?
I am Mr. Open Space.
But that's what the whole development of open space is, to have nobody touching it, nobody going on it. And that, isn't it?
But you could have the same amount of open space with 10 houses instead of 20. Okay, if the open space
But
is
that's
being
not what
used-
the application is. It's like you're
No, I
dictating
understand.
an application. I mean,
no,
that's,
just- I'm talking
you know,
conceptually.
it's
Conceptually
bizarre.
with open space is a great idea, but the way the zoning regs read, is some of this open space can be used for recreation, not just by the local folks or the neighborhood, but by other, but, I mean, we can get off.
But
of the
then you have
philosophical-
liability. Open space is open space. That's what, that we are in front, and you are there too. So, I mean, it's like, we have open space. I mean, we've done it all. So, I mean, what,
Well,
I don't understand how you're contradicting the open space. How can you do that?
from
in
a
your
The
public-
previous application had more open space.
Yeah, I would say, it doesn't make any sense to me.
There's public-
You are Mr. Open Space. How could you deny open space?
if you're going to trade in, because I mean, open space has a value. There's no question about that.
Yes.
But
And
there's-
that's
but
what we're
there's-
saying here. That's what the develop,
But from a public use standpoint, from a recreational standpoint, and the regs
Dude,
talk about. No,
public
talk
use.
about-
How you want somebody to go traipsing through the swampland?
Okay.
You know,
No, I don't.
and have
That's
the
the point.
liability. I
The
mean,
animals do.
yeah, but I'm just saying is that's what we want. Open space. You've pushed open space for the whole town. You've done a great job. But what I'm saying is that's what we're trying. When you do a cluster subdivision or a subdivision where you're not going to be disturbing the wetlands, that's what we're trying to do. That's what the commission's trying to jump on the open space. That's what we want. We keep the houses closer, keep them clustered. That's what we want to do. That's what we're trying to do. Yes or no?
And again,
We're fighting the fight for you.
there's a point-
You're fighting us against on the other side. You can't have it both ways. Are we,
No. I'll give you an example. Since it was brought up as an example of a local cluster near this thing, is the Meadowcrest, right down Wallingford Road.
What is it?
That is a good, that is a nice example. You go by there, you go by it on Coleman Road. There's a nice, Coleman Road. There's a nice entryway. There's pathways for people to walk through there. There's a bridge coming off of, on the other side of the development, coming across the stream. That is a.
That's at the end past Half Moon?
No. Coleman
Well,
up close to.
Dave, you're
up close
giving me
to
a
Wallingford
compliment?
Road.
That was my subdivision. So you're giving me a compliment?
It's a big night for you.
I'm shocked. I'm shocked.
Get that down,
I'm
please.
shocked, too.
Write that twice, big letters.
I'm shocked that
That
was
was my
well,
subdivision,
I'm shocked
David.
that was well done.
And yes, that did have that in it.
It's
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Schrump's comments that were sent to the planning and the engineering department have become part of this record?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Good.
So question for Dave.
Okay, I just,
That was just.
I want to be sure, because some of your comments, David, are,
They might be a little.
so I have a couple of
You think about
comments of my
this?
own. You said that there's a $500,000 plan of development for the sewer commission to see what was feasible for sewers?
Correct.
Okay, that was done by AECom?
It's right over there on my chair.
It was done by AECom?
Yeah. over
Okay.
there, Whatever they're called
And
back
you
then.
were the liaison from the town council to that commission?
That's right. You sat there and I sat there.
Yeah,
Every
so-
meeting.
Yes, so so you were the liaison, and you have complained about this subdivision because we had allowed sewer to go into this subdivision, when in fact, for whatever reason, that the plan didn't develop or didn't allow sewers on the Kurtz piece, it allowed sewers further on your piece where you live, and was that a conflict of interest? Or did you declare that as a conflict of interest when you served on, as a liaison to town council to the
Check
Water
the
Pollution Control?
minutes, Matt. I've said all along, as did Mr. Pelton, who is in the same neighborhood, who is the chairman of that commission, that nobody in that, I shouldn't say nobody. People came out to that hearing en masse from Charles and Sir Walter and said, we don't want sewers. And I was one of them, okay? I was one of them. I don't want sewers on that street. Most people on this don't want it. But someday, there might be a requirement that they have to have them. That development, most of the houses in that development were built about 1965, 1966. You have reserve areas in acre lots where you can put in a new leach field. Sooner or later,
Morningside
those
East
houses,
done by Dick Fisk,
Matt, sooner or
owned by
later.
Warren Hall.
No. Don't start on me on conflict of interest, big guy. Okay? Don't start on me. Okay? Don't start, because you sat there, Matt, you sat there on WPCA, swore up and down that you had no connection to that development of that property. When in fact, Apex Development, your nephew and your son had perk test, that's what this map is all about, had perk test that property for Mr. Kurtz. So don't tell me about conflict of interest. Okay? You've been ignoring that ordinance for more times than I can count. I'm going to end it right here because I got to go home and watch 10 o'clock.
I have a question, Dave.
Yes.
So the previous application had less draw on the town. Not a lot of kids, if any kids at all, private driveway, private garbage, very little draw on from Cheshire. This application has a lot. It's a town road. If they were to get rid of the 4 homes on Talmadge, then this cul-de-sac has 16 homes on it. I don't even know if they need special application, maybe for some grading and stuff. Would that be good? It's still worse than the previous one, but you guys are suing for the first one, which is better for the town of Cheshire. So can you explain that?
It would not be better for putting 34 houses on what it amounted to, I think was about 9 acres of land, is ludicrous. You got tiny little lots. Yes, it's a private road, but the whole 55, let's look down the road, folks, okay? The whole 55 development issue came about because there's a whole group of people called baby boomers. Did you ever hear that term? A whole bunch of baby boomers were turning 55 and they needed a place to live. When that demographic bubble passes through, I can guarantee you, I'll be dead, okay? But for you younger folks, they're going to
I'll be
be
55 and looking for a house. I mean, that's what the problem is that
yeah,
you have the
there
next generation.
there won't be as many, and you're going to have lawsuits saying you can't restrict these houses to 55 and over because there isn't a big enough market.
But
Watch,
that's
you
a
can-
federal
Yeah,
guideline to do that, and it had more open space for you.
No,
Chairman.
I don't understand this.
Matt wants to give.
Well, the only thing.
How
the
can
only
you
thing-
make a statement like that when the population, David, when you and I graduated from high school around the same time, you are a little bit older, probably a little bit wiser, but around the
Not
same time,
probably,
the
not
population
probably,
of the
but go
town of
ahead.
Cheshire was about 17,000 people, and it's now 30,000 people. So how can you make the statement that there's not going to be enough people to fill the 55 and over when the country is growing by leaps and bounds? So that
Matt,
statement makes no
Matt, I'm
sense.
not going to argue with you. You ought to check the demographics because I think it was Forbes magazine recently said, how is the United States going to manage demographic decline like some of the other countries? Being able to fight it off. The United States population is not growing the way you think it is. And in fact, it may very much start shrinking if the current level of reproduction continues. Now, I know, people used to have big families, okay? They don't have big families anymore. But the whole 55 thing, it could turn into.
The
maybe-
55 thing is
yeah.
a lot of people I'm 54 years old. So the 55, I'm there, okay? And
Yeah.
a lot of people in my demographic are buying smaller homes and live by themselves. They're single and that's
true.
it.
Yep, got it.
So that's my demographic that's going on right now. So I don't understand how there's not a need. I mean, that's what that and like I think that we all agree is that the first application that came before us,
Well,
and then now here we are again, and this has not satisfied the neighbors. So I really I'm a grasp of what you guys really want.
build your houses, build your lots, put in your cul-de-sac, but make it the right length, put the lots the right size, make sure it's not graded so it disadvantages the neighboring. In other words, do it right. I'm not saying don't build this development. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying build it within the proper guidelines.
But
with
this
the proper
development
oversight.
mirrors Copper Beach development, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And you know how Copper Beach got built as a cluster? You know how it got built?
How?
Okay, because Mr. Bowman's brother, all right, originally it was going to 1 acre lots on that side of Talmadge, was not going to have sewers, okay? And you were going to be able to get, I don't know, maybe 15, 16 houses on 1 acre lots with septic systems, all right? And they bought a piece of land across the street because nobody on the other side of Talmadge Road would give them a right of way for a sewer line. They bought a piece of property, they put an easement across there, they put the sewer. That's the manhole that we're talking about for this project was put in for Copper Beach to get across wetlands down by Village Drive to get into the town sewer system. So you went from maybe 15 or 16 houses on 1 acre septic to, I don't know what you got in there.
I don't know how
20,
many houses are in
whatever.
Copper Beach.
So you
I have
got
no idea.
more units. Now, that's how it,
That-
guys,
Wow.
that's how it
Wow.
happened. So you ended up with more units, so the developer makes more money, and the homeowners association, which the previous speaker talked about, has a whole bunch of mosquito breeding wetlands in the backyard for his trouble. I'll be back.
Don't forget Platt sold the original easement from Strathmore.
Okay. I'm going to shut this thing down no later than 10, so just so we know. Okay, I'll give you it real quick.
Matt Wage again, 669 Wallingford Road. First, Matt, I hate to say this, but I actually agree with you. The Meadowbrook and the Strathmore, off of Coleman, those are excellent developments, good wildlife corridor, great job, because it all ties together. That is one of the best developments I've ever seen in the town of Cheshire.
Thank you.
So hats off to you. In terms of, talk about the benefit and the difference, the open space, because you're trying to keep talking about open space.
Mhm.
A conventional development, again, would have the same amount of space for wildlife corridor as the cluster. The difference is, in order to put the sewer for the cluster, you have to destroy the wetlands that you're trying to save. Because the sewer's going right through the wetlands, and you can't rebuild a vernal pool. You simply can't. And there's never been an environmental study on that property. There's never been a water study on that property. There's never been an engineering study on that property. So, if you look at what's buildable on that property, that entire open space area that you're talking about isn't buildable. It simply isn't buildable. It won't support a septic unless it's engineered, but then you're building on wetlands. It's simply not buildable. So there's no difference except for the cluster destroys the wetlands and you get 4 more houses. Where conventional, you keep the wetlands, you keep the wildlife corridor, you don't have a homeowners association. You do have a town road in both. And also, if you read the demographics for the 55 plus, what they quoted was 2 things. One, they did surveys in 1980 polling, because I read that whole, how good this is. They based that on a 1980 or 1990 survey of baby boomers, which have already gone through this process. The demographics, if you want to go to the demographics, Cheshire is designed for a 2% decrease in population. We're not seeing that right now because of COVID and the big housing boom and the demand for properties. But basically, you look great for 54. When you turn 55, you'd be like the other ones that basically are staying in their houses or downsizing, but not going to a 55-plus community unless it offers some type of benefit. At the 12th
Well,
hour,
it does offer benefit. I mean, it offers.
it offers a benefit that you're 55.
Well, yeah, and you have everything's taken care of. I mean, that's what
The
you know,
only
that's,
thing
you
that's
know,
taken care
if
of
you
in
want to
that-
leave, you can leave. That's
The
what a
only
55.
thing
You know,
that's taken care of in the 55-plus, and you pay for it, is the lawn.
no, I know, but I'm just saying as far as
Because
we're getting
at the
sidetracked.
last-
We're getting sidetracked, and I don't want to get
Okay,
sidetracked. I'm
but
sorry.
the 11th hour, just the other point, the 11th hour, the last application, a man stood here and he said, oh, it's going to increase the property values. And several of you up there saying it's going to increase the property values because he had mentioned Heritage Village in Southbury, whatever it is. Southbury, that Heritage Village is over 3,000 population.
Mhm.
The houses are more expensive around that, and I'm very familiar with that Heritage Village, because Heritage Village provides for the community. There's a golf course,
Mhm.
there's a convention center, there's a hotel, there's a really good deli with cheap sandwiches, there's a post office, there's a leasing office, you know.
It's a
there's-
whole infrastructure. I understand.
It's a whole infrastructure. And if
Mhm.
you own a piece of property next to that, you get some of that infrastructure.
Yeah.
You can play on the golf course and you can't see, there's over 2,500 units up there. And you can drive all the way around it and you'll never see a single unit at all. And when you talked about just as little aside, I was really happy about I think it's on West Main, the very first affordable housing unit that you put in that's set back. Somebody brought it up in conversation one time. Or maybe it's Beach something or other.
Beachport, yeah.
Yeah, as you go down the hill, it's on the left-hand
Yeah,
side, but it's set
Lumber.
way
That's
back.
town-owned.
That's town.
That's town-owned. That's actually
That's,
elderly and low-income housing.
Yeah.
that's perfect. And that fits with the town plan. It fits with the character of the town and provides a service. I've looked at because you did that a long time ago. And I think a lot of people fought it.
12.
Early 80s.
Yeah, early 80s is a long time ago.
Another expansion was 10 years ago, I think.
Yeah. No, this is older because I actually knew some
No, this
people
one-
actually lived
Yeah,
there.
we did expand it. We did add it when they bought the old house.
But there's acreage and
we
there's a
put
lot
some
of
more
areas
units in
that,
there.
you know, would really benefit for low-income housing.
This is degenerating into
Yeah.
a debate.
Okay.
And I,
Yeah.
and I have a
Let's-
question.
Let's go to bed.
Of the town planner.
Yep.
You don't need me, right, Matt?
No.
No,
I give
thank
you a
you.
compliment, you owe me.
We have, from Wright Pierce, a memorandum dated 6/29/22.
Yep.
Is that correct?
Mhm.
Is that someone that the town of Cheshire hired to review this application?
So Wright Pierce actually is the consulting engineer. They consult with the WPCA.
I know that.
They reviewed the first application, and the town engineer asked them to do a peer review of this. So you have two engineers that are reviewing it independently, just because they were familiar with the drainage, they're familiar with the site, and Merrick didn't want to duplicate efforts or contradict any comments that were made previously. So that's why, right, you have two memos. You have one from Merrick and you have one from Wright Pierce.
All right, so Wright Pierce is an independent contractor, an independent consulting engineer that was hired by the town of Cheshire to review the work that was presented
Correct.
by the engineer.
That's what
For
Mr.
the
Martin,
applicant.
that's
Is
what
that
Mr.
correct?
Martin asked about.
Correct. In addition
Okay.
to in-house staff that's doing an engineering review.
Okay, so there was a review then, an independent review. Thank you.
I just wanted Mr. Martin to know that that was, that you heard what was just discussed, right?
Yeah, I did, but
Okay.
why'd that just come out now? You know?
Because everything else was going on.
Yeah,
So-
so,
That's the question. I just wanted to be sure, that's all.
Yeah.
so I'm going to make this brief because you know my position. Mr. Natale, credit. He said it all. This meeting could have gone away if we listened to Mr. Natale say, what's the benefit of the town? If you approve 12 to 16 houses, this thing probably flies through. You asked what's the difference and all of that? If you approve the 12 to 16 houses and with no waivers, you probably have no objection. Conversely, you're going to have significant objection if you approve more than that. And you've seen that based on all the public opposition. So I would just ask the board to do their job and protect the people and the town of Cheshire as opposed to a contractor. And lastly, if Lovely Construction decides to back out of this and some other contractor in the city takes over, that could present another conflict of interest as well. I'm big on conflict of interest, as you know. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Who the contractor is.
Oh, no, hold on. We have another 10 o'clock.
11 o'clock.
No, 10, I said.
Would they change the rules?
One question.
No, I said-
Patty
I said
Yumber,
10.
791 Wallingford Road. Youngberg, 791 Wallingford Road. No one's asked the question, and it's so strange. Why are they going to leave that big house there?
Why?
Yeah,
I have no idea. Just a lot. to
it's so
us.
inappropriate.
It's what?
It's so inappropriate. It's this huge mansion, and then they're going to put in,
I don't think the houses that they're building are that much smaller.
oof.
That- Oh, they are? Okay. Well, I don't know. They look big.
How many square feet is Earl's place?
I have no idea.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, would you allow that huge house to stay there? It would be so inappropriate.
Yeah, we have no say. We're doing the lots. We have no say as far as to knock the house down or not. That'd be up to the builder.
Do they know why?
Who knows what?
The people who did the layout?
Mr. Vazone, I guess he could ask. I have no idea though.
Why?
Practical thing to do.
To leave it up? And no one would be living there.
Oh, of course I'm gonna be living there. Actually, there's significant interest in that.
Well, why doesn't somebody live there and leave the property alone?
Okay, go fund me. Go fund me and see if we raise enough money to do that.
Just a practical question.
That's
I
it.
just think it's so strange.
Anyone else? Come up? No? No? Any commission members? Mr. Natale?
Just a couple questions for Attorney Fazone. In the previous application, it was talked about, I believe it was Mr. Bolden's property where there's the 50-foot easement for the potential of bringing sewers in from the other neighborhoods there. Anything going on with that?
The easement exists. It's existed for years.
Okay, but I correct me if I'm wrong, with the last application, there was talk that that easement could be used to bring sewers to Charles
Correct.
Drive?
There,
And they still
there is,
can?
pardon me?
And they still would have that potential if the
Correct.
town chose to
Yep.
do that?
Yes.
I believe the layout of the sewer now is to go out to the end of it's now a town road. It's not private anymore. And the town could pick it up at the end of that, is the way I read the map.
But the previous application, that was access for plowing or something. There was a little walkway that you guys got rid of. In the original, there was a gate, and that's what we worried about, and you guys removed that access.
I don't remember. Do you remember the gate? I don't remember the gate.
Andrew Cork again for the record. Yeah, there was one iteration where we had that as the emergency access. That wasn't the final approved plan, but this plan has none of that. The sewer construction is on the subject property to an area near the property line. There's an easement. It could be extended. It's being designed as part of the concept layout plan that WPCA approved to allow for that extension, but that would be done by others. That's not part of this project.
Gotcha.
So there's no construction proposed.
Yeah, so if I'm
on the
reading
Bolden
S1 right,
property.
then between lots 16 and 17.
Bolden, Bolden.
So if I'm reading the S1 right, between lots 16 and 17, that easement would continue through to the road.
It's a 20.
Well, yeah, just to be very clear, there's a proposed easement between 16 and 17.
Gotcha.
That comes up to the existing easement that we're not touching anything on the
Right,
existing
but
easement. Yeah.
that's my point, though. It
Yeah.
exists, it's going to be there.
That's
So it's-
right.
The easement doesn't end at the property line, Mr. Bolden. It continues
That's
to what would
correct.
be the new street.
That's correct. And what's proposed is just a sewer easement, not an access easement. So there's no rights of access between the two.
The easement on his property is how many feet?
It's a 50-foot easement because that's access and utility.
Okay, and
This is, we're proposing a 20-foot sanitary sewer.
So that means
easement,
that you
not
couldn't make it a road.
access.
Okay.
It's not for access. It's just
All
for
right.
sewer.
Okay. And then the last question, just going back to the sidewalk. So there's 7 properties on that side of the street. Is it possible to have the sidewalk all the way through? I know that you said there would be issues with drainage, but is it possible?
You're talking about on the proposed road on the easterly side? Yeah, we've designed it with the grading plan that you have before you to function with the sidewalk. It's designed and shown that way.
So it's, but you're asking for a waiver to not put the sidewalk in that side. So it can function, you've designed it to have the sidewalk. Attorney Fazone said that
Right,
one of the
so-
issues was drainage, but you're saying that it's
Right, and
designed
there's
to handle it.
comments from Wright Pierce about those issues with the drainage, and we could resolve those better by eliminating the sidewalk. But we have made accommodations that if the sidewalk waiver is not approved, it will function. It can be done. It's just it would be done better with that waiver, so, just to be clear.
9:52, you have 8 minutes. Mr. Mercado?
Is there any kind of connection path between the two parcels through that wetland?
Not with this proposal. Previously, there was that, there was a footbridge. It was sort of a floating bridge that was going to be as part of the interconnection with the walkway to Talmadge. But with this development, because there's private lots coming off of there, that's not included.
Okay.
I now saying that made me think something. Mr. Wage was saying about there be disturbance in the wetlands to go with the sewer system between, what is the amount of disturbance it would be to wetlands to put that pipe in?
So I started making a table of some of those comparisons. The wetland crossing with this plan is identical to the previous plan. It has the 1,700 square feet of what the Wetland Commission determined to be temporary disturbance because it will be restored. There's a revegetation plan. There's not going to be, after the sewer construction, it's not considered to be a permanent inhibitance to the connectivity of the wetlands. That was their determination. And we're making the exact same proposal as what was.
But how many
previously
feet of the wetlands would you be disturbing?
1,700 square feet.
1,700, okay, so
Yeah.
1,700 feet of wetlands would be disturbed.
Square feet, yeah.
Oh, square feet.
Square feet,
Oh,
Right.
okay,
Right.
and it's going to be replanted.
okay.
which is allowed under the wetland
Right.
regulations.
That's on your sheet G5. It's
Okay.
more of a wetland issue, but
And
it's identical.
restored.
And restored. All
Okay.
of that's restored. So, and this plan also, again, it's a wetland issue, but has less upland review area disturbance. I know that's a wetland issue. So I did draw some comparisons. I don't know if that's appropriate now in some of the responses or if we want to do that at the next meeting. But I did take for the next meeting, or do you would like some of those now to?
No, for the next meeting, because I said 10 o'clock, I was shutting it down, we got 6 minutes. You
Okay.
can't talk
I did
that
take
fast.
notes on all those and
Okay, we'll have those answers for the next meeting. All right, anyone else from the public before we shut down for the night? No?
Second,
Second by Mr.
Mr.
Bowman.
Chairman,
Oh,
first we need a motion to continue the public hearing, then adjourn.
Can I ask a question, please?
yes, Mr. Rizzo.
Is
like
there
to
any
remove my
reason
second.
for, is there any reason for Mr. Hesketh to come back to the next meeting?
For traffic?
Yeah,
No, I think he's free to go.
great,
I
thank
think
you.
he's answered all our questions, and I don't really see that being a problem with anyone in the audience or any of the commission members. Drive home safely.
Motion to continue the public hearing?
Okay, motion's, all the same, saying aye?
Aye.
Okay, 100%. Okay, now, Mr. Kaderis is back on. Mr. Bowman? All those in favor, saying aye?
Aye.
Okay, we're out of here. 9:55.